The U.S. House of Representatives is about to make a decision with far-reaching consequences. They are voting on a bill that could land American citizens in prison for up to 20 years. Their crime? Participating in boycotts against Israel? Yes, you heard that right. Boycotting. The very act of peacefully withholding your money or support could soon carry a heavier sentence than some violent crimes. Is this America, the land of the free, or have we stumbled into some dystopian nightmare? Buckle up, folks, because this is going to get messy. This bill has ignited a firestorm of controversy, pitting free speech advocates against pro-Israel groups. It's a debate about the limits of dissent, the power of political lobbying, and America's complex relationship with Israel. Over the next few minutes, we're going to unpack this legislative hand grenade. We'll examine the arguments, explore the political machinations, and ask the tough questions that nobody in Washington seems to want to answer. So grab your thinking caps, folks, because we're diving headfirst into the belly of the beast. This isn't just some vaguely worded piece of legislation. This bill has teeth, sharp, pointy teeth that could sink into anyone who dares to criticize Israel. First, it slaps hefty fines on individuals and organizations participating in boycotts targeting Israel or its settlements. We're talking up to $1 million. That's enough to make your bank account cry itself to sleep. But wait, there's more. The bill doesn't stop at financial penalties. It goes full-on authoritarian, threatening up to 2 decades behind bars for those who dare to support boycotts promoted by international bodies like the UN. Think about that for a second. The US government could throw you in the slammer for aligning with the UN. This bill is like a legislative Swiss Army knife designed to silence any and all forms of protest against Israel. It's a blatant attack on free speech disguised as a show of support for an ally. But don't just take my word for it, let's hear what the opposition has to say. Civil liberties groups are up in arms, and frankly, they should be. The American Civil Liberties Union, ACLU, has called this bill a blatant violation of the First Amendment, and they're not mincing words. They argue that boycotting is a form of protected speech, a fundamental right enshrined in the very fabric of American democracy. Think about it. Throughout history, boycotts have been a powerful tool for social change. From the Boston Tea Party to the Montgomery bus boycotts, Americans have a long and proud tradition of using their wallets to express their values. This bill throws that tradition out the window, replacing it with the chilling threat of government censorship. Palestinian advocacy groups are particularly concerned. They see this bill as a blatant attempt to stifle criticism of Israel's actions in Gaza, where a humanitarian crisis is unfolding as we speak. They argue that this bill isn't about protecting Israel, it's about silencing any opposition to its policies, no matter how unjust or inhumane those policies may be. On the other side of this legislative battlefield, we have the pro-Israel lobby. Groups like AIPAC and FDD Action have thrown their considerable weight behind the bill, arguing that it's essential to protect Israel from what they call anti-Semitic boycotts. They claim that the boycott, divestment and sanctions (BDS) movement, which seeks to pressure Israel to end its occupation of Palestinian territories, is inherently anti-Semitic and aims to delegitimize the Jewish state. They argue that this bill is necessary to combat this alleged discrimination and ensure Israel's security. However, critics argue that conflating criticism of Israel with anti-Semitism is a dangerous tactic designed to silence legitimate dissent. They point out that opposing a government's policies does not equate to hating its people, and that this bill sets a dangerous precedent by criminalizing political speech based on its content. Section 5, Shifting Sands of Power, the bill's journey through Congress. This bill isn't some new phenomenon. It's been bouncing around the halls of Congress for years, repeatedly thwarted by Democrats who saw it for the constitutional dumpster fire it is. But the political landscape has shifted. With Republicans now controlling both the House and the Senate, this bill has a clear path to becoming law. And let's be clear, this isn't just about partisan politics. This is about America's unwavering support for Israel, even when it means sacrificing our own democratic values. For decades, the U.S. has shielded Israel from international criticism, providing billions in military aid, and using its veto power at the UN to block resolutions condemning its actions. This bill is just the latest chapter in a long and troubling history of prioritizing Israeli interests over human rights and international law. Section 6. A dangerous precedent, unintended consequences of the bill. If this bill becomes law, the consequences could be dire, not just for free speech, but for America's standing in the world. Imagine a world where the US government can imprison its citizens for participating in peaceful protests. Imagine the chilling effect this would have on dissent, on activism, on our very ability to hold our leaders accountable. This bill sets a dangerous precedent. one that could embolden other countries to follow suit. It could usher in an era where criticizing governments, even peacefully, carries the risk of imprisonment. And what message does this send to the world about America's commitment to human rights? How can we, with a straight face, lecture other nations about freedom of expression when we're busy locking up our own citizens for boycotting hummus? Section 7. Echoes of the Past. The South African Anti-Apartheid Movement. The proponents of this bill would have you believe that boycotting Israel is somehow unprecedented, a dangerous and radical act. But history tells a different story. Remember the South African apartheid regime? That brutal system of racial segregation and oppression? The international community didn't defeat apartheid by sending strongly worded letters. They used boycotts. They used divestment. They used sanctions. And you know what? It worked. The parallels between the South African anti-apartheid movement and the BDS movement are undeniable. Both movements are rooted in the principles of nonviolent resistance. Both seek to dismantle systems of oppression and injustice, and both have faced fierce opposition from those who benefit from the status quo. Section 8. The Gaza Crisis. A humanitarian catastrophe unfolds. While this bill makes its way through Congress, a humanitarian crisis of epic proportions is unfolding in Gaza. Over 2 million Palestinians are trapped in what's been described as the world's largest open-air prison, subjected to a crippling blockade that has left them with limited access to food, water, and medicine. The UN has warned of a looming famine, with children bearing the brunt of this man-made disaster. Yet, instead of addressing this humanitarian crisis, the US government is more concerned with silencing those who dare to speak out against it. This bill is a slap in the face to the suffering people of Gaza. It's a sign that the US government is more interested in protecting Israel's image than in alleviating Palestinian suffering. Section 9. A question of balance, free speech versus legislative action. So here we are, folks, at the heart of the matter. Where do we draw the line between free speech and legislative action? Can the government, in the name of supporting an ally, criminalize dissent and silence criticism? This isn't just an academic debate. This is a question that strikes at the very core of what it means to be an American. It's a question that deserves our attention, our scrutiny, and our unwavering commitment to protecting the fundamental freedoms that make this country great. So the next time you hear about this bill, don't just shrug it off as another example of Washington dysfunction. Engage with it, debate it, fight for the soul of our democracy. Because if we don't stand up for our rights, who will?